Hi, and welcome to another edition of Golf Channel Academy. I'm Steve Sands, pleased to be alongside one of the game's great icons, Greg Norman. We're here in Hobe Sound, Florida at the Medalist, Greg's home golf course. And Greg, we're going to talk about a lot of things over the next 30 minutes. We're going to do some short game work. We're going to put some irons in your hands. And then, of course, we're going to start our show with your bread and butter, driving the golf ball. You're one of the game's great drivers. Why? If you could make it simple for us.
Well, it was simple. My original coach, Charlie Earp, said to me, Greg, hit the ball as hard as you can and we'll figure out how to hit it straight. Because he thought the game of golf was a game where if you could dominate it off the tee, you could play extremely aggressively with your iron play, which we'll get into that segment. So I set up my whole golf hole by my tee shot. And as I developed my skills at driving the golf ball, which we'll go into, I became more and more confident. So as my confidence just started to exude on the tee, then it all resonated through the rest of my game. So to me, driver was the one that kicked it off.
If you had to pass along one technique for us, for the viewers out there, what would the one thing be that they have to do to drive the ball straight?
I don't care whether you're high handicap, middle, or low handicap, or a professional. You look at all great drivers of the golf ball, we swing from the ground up. A lot of players who play the game of golf, the regular amateur out there who's often 18, they have a tendency of swinging from the top or throwing the golf club from the top. So we try to swing from the ground up. A great analogy is if you ever try to chop a log with an axe, what do? You swing into the log, you don't swing up away from the log. Same with the golf swing. As you're coming down, you're swinging into the ground, you're burying your feet into the ground, then you release all that power coming up and out of it.
There's so many things we're going to talk about over the course of the next 30 minutes. We're going to get into grip pressures and all kinds of different things. But as we watch you hit a couple of drives, if someone had to have a key to hitting the ball a little bit farther than perhaps they hit it right now, what would that key be?
Take your right pocket, or if you're right-handed golfer, right? We just stick to right-handed. For me, distance comes from the rotation of your body, not how strong you are in your hands or your forearms, but the rotation of your hips and your shoulders. So to me, when I was in my younger days, if I wanted to turn on another 15 yards of power, I'd call it RPB, right pocket back. I'd take my right pocket and I'd push it away from the ball like this. So you actually feel like you're a piston. You're going back with one piston, the left piston comes forward, and then boom, the right piston goes forward, coming back, and the left goes back on your downswing. So to me, it was like, make sure your right pocket turns, but you stand on top of your right foot.
Is shoulder turn a fitness thing, or is it something that can be taught? And knee flex and the way your balance is from head to toe as you drive the golf ball, how would you do that and demonstrate it for us?
Well, I think a good way to talk about it first before I demonstrate it, everybody's body is their own fingerprint. So your anatomy is going to dictate which way your shoulders turn. So some guys might have, some people who play the game might have a little tilt in their swing or in their body rotation if they naturally stand. Some people might turn with their shoulders a little bit shallow. It depends on how your back flexibility is between your scapulars, your lower back, how flexible you are with your hamstrings and your glutes. So it all depends on the person, but don't fight it. I mean, everybody says, well, your swing plane should be here, it should be perfect. Well, everybody's swing plane technically is a little bit different. So find out what suits you. A good way of doing it is without a golf club. Just putting your arms across your forehead, across your chest like this, and then rotate. Now, where am I feeling the most comfortable? Is where I have no pressure. Okay, so is that my shoulder going too tight for some or too flat for others? I don't know, but I know for me, when I go into this position, I've got a natural full turn without any pressure. So practice that in the mirror. You can do that at home all day long. Just stand there and just put your arms across your chest and find out what suits you the most, and then go from there.
As we close out this segment, if you could give one strong tip to a high handicapper to give him or her just a little bit more confidence with the longest club in the bag, what would it be?
Visualization. When a high handicapper gets under pressure, they go out there and they see the out of bounds, they see the trees, they see the bunker, they see the water, they go, oh my gosh, I can't go in the water. When a tour player gets up there or a good player gets up there, they know the spot they want to hit that golf ball to. They don't see the out of bounds, they don't see the trouble. So we get up there and we're fixated on where we want the ball to go and how we want the ball to get there. So when I play with these Pro-Am players, I tell them, don't think about the trouble. Think about where you want the ball to finish, not where you don't want the ball to finish. So that way it'll relax your mind. If your mind relaxes, what happens then is your forearms and your grip pressure get relaxed. The biggest fault I see is people get to the tee and they go, the death grip, you know, you get the whites of your knuckles showing up there, and all of a sudden your forearms are tight, your shoulders are tight. So when you get back to here, something's got to give. And what normally gives is your weakest muscles, which is probably your little finger, your next finger, that'll release, and then all of a sudden now the club's dropping, you've lost all your power build up here. Now what do you got to do? You got to regroup, so they go like this, and they throw the club. So it's relaxation. If you started with a nice relaxed position, your muscles are going to allow you to build up more tension as you turn. And the more you turn, the more you coil around this lower part of your body. Now everything's ready to unwind. Once they get in this position, now you release. So the amateur, they get too tight because their mind puts them in that tight position.
Still ahead, Greg Norman recalls the best tip he's ever received.
And Nicholas came up to me at the dinner table.
We are back with the great Greg Norman here at Hobe Sound, the medalist, Golf Channel Academy. And Greg, on the golf course, in your great life here, playing professional golf, what's the best advice you ever received?
I'd have to say 86, July, Saturday night, British Open. I was leading the golf tournament. It was miserable weather. Turnberry, yep. And Nicholas came up to me at the dinner table and he said, Greg, tomorrow just think about your grip pressure. Grip it nice and soft. You know, you hear advice all the time, and you know, people are very, very encouraging for me to go on and win that golf tournament. And so when I woke up the next morning, I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't forget about it the night before. And, you know, we had a late tee time, it was like 3:20 or some ridiculous tee time. So, you know, I actually thought about it. And then when the first thing I did in the morning when I picked up a golf club in my room is I actually felt it. And yeah, I think we become oblivious to it because it's just an automatic thing for us. It's like the regular person driving to work. I mean, sometimes we get tense by grabbing the steering wheel. Just think about what you're doing with a cup of coffee or writing it with a pen or whatever, even holding your cell phone. And you can learn to relax those muscles. So Nicholas probably gave me the best tip of all. And then I went on and won the golf tournament. So I have to say it worked.
The first of your 2 Open championships, one of the great weeks of your life, I'm sure, on the golf course, 86 at Turnberry. Let's move on now to grip pressure as well as we go through the iron play. And what's the key as you line up? You told us what it's like to line up a drive. Do you do the same thing for iron play, or is it a totally different routine for you?
No, it's the same routine, Steve, absolutely the same routine. But let me just explain. I think the biggest fault that amateurs get into when they play, I don't care how good or bad you are, they don't know exactly how far they hit a 7-iron or a 5-iron or a 3-iron or 4-iron. When we play at the prime of our golf, we err on the side of safety. Like, we don't try and hit our golf club the maximum every time. Our irons, especially drivers, yes, you can, because you're not worried about the controlling of distance unless there's water at the end of the fairway. With your irons, you are concerned about the control of your distance. So to me, all the amateurs out there, you should learn how far you hit your golf ball with each respective club. Now, and don't try and hit it to the max all the time. So you throttle back to control the distance. And the lower the club gets, from a 7-iron to an 8-iron to a 9-iron to pitching wedge, now you got to be really precise as you possibly can to whatever your capabilities are of knowing that distance, because they're your scoring golf clubs. The normal 7-iron, I can, let's just say it's 165, 168, 170. Now, if you want to step on it, it can get out to maybe close to 180 if I wanted to. But then it's the controlling of the ball flight is what's going to determine that. So it's the same routine. I get behind, I visualize the shot, I visualize the ball flight that I want to get. And then I'll just, right now, this is just a normal swing, no difference. So that's just a regular 7-iron.
All right, hopefully people can see this. Buddy Antonopoulos, who's the head pro here at the Medalist, has been with you a long, long time, was telling us something that you're famous now for picking the ball, not having a lot of divots, not just on the golf course, but on the range as well. Take us through the process of how you became that type of player when a lot of pros we see, at the end of a range, they've been hitting balls for 50 minutes or 60 minutes. They've got just a huge chunk of divots. Why are you the exact opposite? How did that happen?
Well, that's got a lot to do with my swing plane. My swing plane was very, very up You know, I had a nice, back in my younger days, it was up. So therefore I stayed tall. My chest was high all the time. I never had any drop into it. You'll see some of the play. Tiger gets a lot of drop into it. You see his head go down. I was the opposite. I stayed very high, and staying high, my right foot used to slide.
Right.
Because I had generated so much power, but my body stayed up. So therefore, my shaft angle stayed in a nice plane, but it wasn't digging into the ground. And the other thing too is the grass I used to practice on wasn't very good because it was always gnarly into the grain and it wasn't like manicured like we hear. So you couldn't, if I was into the grain, if your club head mishit the shot a little bit, the club would dig into the ground.
Is that something you recommend to the amateur player, or would you rather them dig a little bit?
Oh, I think the angle of attack of the golf club should be down. It should be ball turf, no question. How much turf you want to take is totally up to you. It depends on your shoulder rotation, obviously the plane of your shaft. I was just a picker. You know, Steve Stricker is about the only one out there now that I see picks the golf ball. He even picks it off a tee on a par 3. So, you know, again, it's just the player's preference. I liked it because it allowed me, especially in wet conditions, I had more control over the golf ball in wet conditions because I wasn't grabbing some grass which was moist in between the ball and the club face, because my angle of attack was so steep and yet so shallow, I could get away with it. One tip that I could give amateurs from a 7-iron, 8-iron or whatever, if you're having problems with your rhythm or understanding body rotation, and we'll probably get into this into pitching later on, but take your same golf club and instead of trying to hit the golf club flat out, address the ball and swing at 50% power but a full swing. This is really hard to do, but it's actually a great training mechanism for it. So you actually stand here and you go,
and what does that
and
end
that
up doing for
teaches
you?
you, tells you where your body is at all times. It is actually a fantastic training tool. Trying to hit, if you hit the ball 150 yards with a 7-iron, try and hit it 75 yards with a full swing. Do that a couple of times, then go and have a full swing, and you'll all of a sudden, now I know where my club head is. I know where my arms are. I know how my body is rotating. Is it rotating? Is it rotating? Okay, I'm good, I'm good. Now I've got to hold that. Same deal, now I've got to rotate through. So, and then you'll feel everything. Because you really don't feel it when you're going at it flat out.
Coming up, Greg Norman faces one of the most intimidating short shots in the game and explains how you can improve your pitching.
Go down the bottom of the grip, right? Get very close to the ball on top of it.
For the best in golf instruction, go to golfchannel.com.
We are back on the Golf Channel Academy, and speaking of academy, you have a new academy coming out. You have one in China. Now you're going to have one in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. What's it all about?
Well, it's about giving back in all ways I possibly can. You know, Myrtle Beach is a great location for me. I have built a golf course there at Barefoot Landing. I've got a restaurant there, and you know, the academy is all about making that transition from a college player into a pro player. A lot of people think it's really easy, but at the end of the day, to make that leap is a big leap. And there's a lot, it's not just the technique of playing the game of golf, it's all the other components that come in with it, Steve. So, you know, it's an honor, it really is. I'm looking forward to it. It's our stepping stone into the United States from an academy standpoint. So, tied in with the one in Australia, one in China, and one here, we're actually really punching the grassroots of golf pretty good.
I'm sure it'll be a huge success, and it'll really help grow the game of golf, especially in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area. Okay, we are now in the short game area, and this is a very scary shot for amateurs. We've seen the technique you've given us from a driving perspective and the iron play, but here we're about 15 yards short of a bunker, and then you've got, I'd say, about 10 to 15 yards of green to work with for a pin. It is a very difficult shot for amateurs to hit. Why?
Especially off a real tight lie, too.
Right. Is this another mental visual thing?
Of course it is. It's what the amateur sees is the big bunker right there in front of him. So that's a daunting visual aspect for him. But before we get into that, a lot of, especially off tight lies like this, a lot of the secret to a good short game is making sure you have the right golf club. I mean, the golf clubs nowadays have a lot of bounce on it.
Right.
And when you get on a real tight lie, that bounce is going to dictate how that leading edge strikes the golf ball. So if you have too much bounce, that's going to hit the ground first, so it's going to speed up the club face a little bit, and the leading edge is going to not go underneath the ball, it's going to hit a little bit above the bottom of the ball, that means the ball is going to go lower and less spin. So you've got to understand what your golf club's got for you. And you can make it a little slight adjustment to the way you position the golf club. So let's just assume your golf club is perfect.
I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think they think the technology only is for the long game. It actually takes...
it's great for the short game
big
as
in
well.
the short game.
Absolutely. I mean, my golf club, I grind it off to like 6.5, 7 degrees bounce.
Right.
There might be some golf clubs out there with 10 degrees bounce. So you just got to be aware of your golf club. It's there to help you. Use it. So just make sure it's positioned right. But let's go back to the technique. A lot of people, because it's tight, they see a bunker there, now they got to get the ball up. So what the biggest fault I see with amateurs is they overswing with the short shot. They get back here too long, and then they're coming in and go, oh my gosh, I've got too much of a backswing for the distance of shot. So they decelerate. The club head passes your hands, and what happens? You either blade it, you chunk it because you hit it fat.
Right.
You're either going over the green or in the bunker. One of the things that I taught myself, and that you watch every great player does, make sure your swing is a little shorter and you accelerate through the ball with the club head. And the way to think about doing that is it's a mini golf swing. No matter whether you're hitting a 300-yard drive or whether you're hitting a 30-yard chip shot, pitch shot, you got to have a little bit of body rotation. The hands create the problems. The more pressure you get under, the tighter your grip gets. So your hands take over. We have to eliminate the hands. That's why I chip without a glove. I like to feel that grip in between my fingers and in the palm of my hand. So it's really floating. So grip pressure is crucial, and make sure that the arc of the swing, like again, is dictated by your body rotation. The arc, I like to keep it flat and simple, and just make sure you speed your club heads with the speed of the rotation of your body, just like a mini golf swing.
And I think it's important to notice that when you're taking it back, I mean, you're literally taking it back hip high almost. It's almost fascinating to watch. I think people do make that long looping swing, and that's the biggest mistake they can make.
And if you want to practice something interesting about getting club head speed, go down the bottom of the grip. Right? Get very close to the ball on top of it. Now the only way is with the same backswing, really accelerate through. Now you have to give more body rotation, and you'll put more spin on the ball and a little bit more control. But very few people actually go all the way down. But it's a practice routine and a tip that you can use to get the feel of the golf club accelerating through the ball.
What's the bigger miss for amateurs? Short into the bunker here, or scull it and go deep?
I think it's what they last look at, and it's the bunker. They see the bunker, it's in their mind, so they're in fear of it. Your subconscious takes over. That's where it's going to go most of the time.
If you had to give a very good player, a low handicap, one tip on the short game as it pertains to what we've seen the last few minutes here, what would that tip be to make them really perfect this shot?
Shorten your swing to 50% of what you think you're doing. And I don't care whether you're only going to hip high or whether you're going to knee high or whether you're going to shoulder high. Shorten that swing up 50% and accelerate through. If you can do that, now you're teaching your body to keep unwinding and keep rotating through the short shot. It's no different than a guy hitting a punch shot into the wind. A punch shot happens, he takes a 3/4 swing, and what happens? He just powers, he rotates that lower body a little bit more to keep the ball low and stay on top of it, right? Same, no different with the short game. It's just a little bit more touch, a little bit more feel, and not as much power being imparted by your body rotation.
We are back with Greg Norman here at the Medalist, and the weather here is perfect. The weather in Hawaii sometimes not so perfect. A lot of wind over there. Australians are used to that. Is that one of the reasons you think, as the 2011 season kicks off again on the Golf Channel in Kapalua, that Australians perform well there?
That's, I think, one of the reasons that the guys like to play a lot of wind. No matter where we play in Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland, Perth, we do get a lot of wind in Australia. But I also think it's the type of grass. I think it's very grainy greens. I've played there before. The ball releases a lot. The ball breaks a lot. Look at Adam Scott winning in Singapore. Very grainy greens. So we grew up on very, very grainy greens. So I think there's a little bit of an advantage of understanding and reading it. You know, the Aussie guys, I'm proud of them. You know, they promote the game of golf, not only for themselves, but for the game of golf, for tournaments around the world, but also for the Australian flag.
One of the reasons that the game is where it is today is because of people like yourself. They had a lot of flair, had a lot of talent, you enjoyed it, and you made it enjoyable for people to watch and come out and see you on a regular basis. Greg Norman, it's been a pleasure for the last half hour. Golf Channel Academy with the great Greg Norman. Thanks so much for spending the last 30 minutes with us. We'll see you again real soon.